There are secrets in America so deeply buried that even the people sworn to protect them pretend they never existed. Not because the truth is dangerous, but because it is embarrassing in its accuracy. For decades, officials laughed at the idea that the U.S. government ran psychic spying programs. They dismissed it as Cold War paranoia, as pseudoscience, as a footnote in the margins of intelligence history. But they lied. I know. I was there. I have lived long enough to witness empires conduct experiments on the mind, on the soul, and on the unseen threads that connect consciousness across continents. Every nation has tried. Only America pretended it didn't. They called their program the Stargate Project, and one man, broken, unwilling, and dangerous, escaped it. His name was Caleb Rios, and this is the story of how the truth found him again. Caleb Rios never wanted to be a hero. He barely wanted to be a functioning human. His apartment in Denver was a shrine to avoidance. Dark curtains, empty ramen cups, a mattress on the floor, and a labyrinth of notebooks filled with frantic sketches and symbols drawn in the dead of night. He lived alone, worked a dead-end night shift job at a data processing facility, and told himself every morning that the past was dead. But the past was not dead. The past had a pulse, and it followed him like a shadow. Caleb had been part of the last generation trained under the remnants of the Stargate Project, long after the government claimed it had ended. He wasn't a soldier nor an analyst. He was a runaway foster kid caught stealing copper wire who happened to demonstrate something the government valued far more than obedience. He could see things that weren't there, not hallucinations, remote viewing, perception without presence. The military didn't let someone like that go until Caleb escaped. Now, a decade later, the only thing he wanted was silence. But silence never lasts when you can hear thoughts that aren't yours. And when the visions returned, first as whispers, then as full sensory intrusions, Caleb understood one thing with bone-deep certainty. Someone had restarted the program, and they were coming for him. I watched him closely then, from the margins, as I always do. Heroes rarely begin their journeys willingly, anti-heroes even less so. It began with a knock, two sharp taps at 3:17 a.m. Caleb's eyes snapped open before the sound reached the room. He had felt the knock coming 15 seconds earlier. His pulse raced, his breath slow but trembling. The knock came again. He approached the door carefully, quietly, bare feet gliding across cold linoleum. He didn't open it. Instead, he closed his eyes and saw. On the other side stood a woman in a dark coat, hands behind her back, expression calm in a way normal people never were at 3 in the morning. And behind her, farther down the hallway, was a man wondering why she hadn't already breached the door. She wasn't police. She wasn't FBI. She was one of them. "Caleb Rios," she called gently. "We're not here to hurt you. We just want to talk." "They always said that," he whispered back without speaking, shaping a thought as clearly as he could. "Not interested." The woman blinked once. She had heard him, and that meant one thing. The program wasn't just back, it had advanced. He grabbed his backpack, his burner phone, and his jacket. Then he walked to the bathroom, pushed aside the shower curtain, and kicked open the old maintenance hatch behind it. He didn't know where he was going, but he knew he couldn't stay, and that was enough. The public believes war happens on battlefields, but I have lived long enough to know better. The real wars are fought in whispers, in hidden rooms, in the minds of those who can tear open reality just enough to glimpse what lies beneath. The Stargate Project had never been about predicting lottery numbers or communing with spirits. It was about advantage. How do you outmaneuver an enemy when they're watching your every move? Simple. You see farther. Caleb had once been their greatest prodigy, a reluctant psychic who could locate hostages, decode encrypted transmissions through intuition alone, and even, on rare occasions, sense death minutes before it arrived. But the very thing that made him valuable also made him unstable. Psychic abilities are not gifts. They are fractures, and fractures spread. Caleb's visions had become uncontrollable, bleeding into his waking life. He fled not to survive, but to stay sane. Now, however, sanity was a luxury he no longer possessed. The visions came in bursts, a laboratory, needles, a blindfold, a military crest with no name, a man whispering, "Bring him home," and always a black door, closed, waiting, calling. Her name was Maeve Corbin. Officially, she didn't exist. Unofficially, she was the handler assigned to retrieve Caleb alive, or silence him if retrieval failed. She wasn't psychic, but she understood them too well. Maeve had been raised by a father who worked deep in the intelligence community. He believed knowledge was power, but truth was volatility. He taught her that people like Caleb were valuable only when controlled and dangerous when free. Caleb had slipped away once. Maeve had been tasked with ensuring he never slipped again. She tracked him through Denver's underground tunnel systems, abandoned subway lines from a century ago mixed with modern infrastructure. Each step echoed with the weight of old secrets. When she reached the end of a long corridor, she found something odd. A symbol drawn hurriedly on the wall. Chalk, fingerprints, uneven pressure. A symbol used only in the Stargate's earliest training phases. "It's him," she whispered. But I knew something Maeve did not. Caleb was no longer running. He was remembering, and that made him unpredictable. Caleb reached a derelict warehouse at the edge of the city. He collapsed inside, breathing hard. His visions intensified. Flashing images, some real, some metaphorical. Black rooms, metal restraints, water dripping somewhere above him. A whisper. "Caleb, open the door." He shook violently. The door. Always the door. The black one. He'd spent 10 years trying not to remember what was behind it. Now the memory pulsed like a heartbeat under his skin. He pressed his palms to his temples. "Stop." But the voice didn't stop. "It's time." He didn't know who the voice belonged to. He only knew one thing. It wasn't human. Caleb reached into his backpack and pulled out a battered USB drive. He'd kept it hidden for years, forgotten, forsaken, believing that destroying it was the only way to truly escape. But now he realized something. He needed it. He plugged it into his burner laptop. The screen flickered. A single file appeared. SG-Delta 37, do not access without level Omega clearance. His hands trembled as he opened it. A series of documents scrolled across the screen. Project descriptions, remote viewing sessions, experiments involving sensory deprivation, psychic interrogation methods, notes on extratemporal perception, and then the final page. A personnel file. The last line read, "Subject RIOS demonstrates unprecedented projection capabilities. Potential, Omega class. Risk level, terminal if uncontrolled. If subject attempts departure, initiate Black Door Protocol." Caleb's blood ran cold. The Black Door Protocol. The thing he had spent a decade forgetting. The thing calling him back. Maeve entered quietly, gun drawn, expression unreadable. "Caleb," she said, "it's over." He stared at her, exhausted, haunted. "Why me? Why did you people keep chasing me? I didn't ask for any of this." "No one asks," she replied. "But some people are chosen." "Chosen?" Caleb spat. "I was a kid. I didn't know what they were turning me into." Maeve hesitated. For the first time, I sensed guilt in her, a rare thing among kingmakers. She lowered her weapon slightly. "You're dangerous, Caleb, not because of what you can do, but because of what you know. I don't even know what's real anymore." She stepped closer. "Then let me help you remember." He didn't trust her, but he wanted answers more than he wanted freedom, and so, against every instinct screaming inside him, he nodded. And Maeve whispered, "Tell me about the door." Caleb froze. "You know? We all know. History is not a straight line. It is a circle, repeating, echoing, looping back on itself in ways few can perceive." Caleb and Maeve stood before the door of his memory. Not physically, but mentally, psychically. The black door was not a literal object. It was a psychic construct created by the Stargate scientists during their final phase of experimentation. A symbolic representation of boundaries the mind was not meant to cross. Caleb had reached it once. No other subject had. When he touched it, something awakened, and the program panicked. Maeve's voice cut through the memory. "What's behind it, Caleb?" He whispered. Not what? Who? His hands shook. They wanted to see how far consciousness could stretch. They thought the mind was just a radio. But it wasn't. It was a door. And they made me open it. Maeve frowned. What did you see? He answered with a shudder. Someone else. Someone watching. Someone ancient. She stepped back. Caleb, that's not possible. He looked directly at me, but she didn't know I was there. Not yet. It's very possible, he whispered, because I can still feel him. I rarely intervene. I rarely reveal myself. But Caleb's abilities brushed against the edges of my presence, something no human had achieved in centuries. I watched him as he trembled. I watched Maeve as she tried to rationalize the irrational. Then Caleb spoke my title, The Watcher. Maeve's eyes widened. How do you know that? He shook his head. I don't. The name just appeared. Maeve turned pale. She had heard stories, rumors, legends whispered in black-budget corridors, a presence that hovered around great events, a being woven into myths across civilizations, a silent kingmaker. She didn't know if I was a god, a ghost, or a delusion, but she knew one thing. If Caleb had sensed me, the program had awakened something unstoppable. Men in tactical gear breached the warehouse. Maeve spun, gun raised. Caleb grabbed her arm. They're not here for you. They're here for me. She swore under her breath. He closed his eyes, extended his senses outward, and felt their minds sharp, cold, controlled by someone else. A hive. Caleb, Maeve whispered, we need to run. No, he said softly. They'll track us anywhere I go. They always have. Maeve stared. What are you saying? I'm tired of running. The only way out is through the door. Maeve's grip tightened. You're not going back there. He met her eyes. I never left. Caleb placed both hands on the warehouse floor and pushed his consciousness outward. Not into the physical world, but into the psychic architecture built into him as a child. He saw the truth. The Stargate Project had never been about espionage. Remote viewing was only the beginning. The real goal was contact, not with aliens, not with spirits, but with the consciousness that underlies reality itself. A presence older than nations, older than memory. The Watcher, me. They wanted to reach the thing I represent, the blueprint beyond the physical, and Caleb was their key. Reality bent. The tactical operatives froze in place, suspended mid-motion. Maeve felt time stutter, her senses dulling as if submerged underwater. Caleb opened the black door in his mind. It swung wide, and for the first time in a century I stepped through. Not in body, but in truth. Maeve dropped to her knees, overwhelmed. Caleb remained standing, though trembling violently. You've grown, I said quietly. He heard me. She heard nothing, only a pressure, ancient and vast. You shouldn't be here, Caleb whispered. And yet, I replied, here we are. Terror mixed with awe in his eyes. What am I? Not what, I said. Who? You are a bridge, the first in a very long time. Maeve gasped for air. Make it stop. Please. Caleb clenched his fists. Leave her alone. She is irrelevant, I said gently. You, however, are not. The moment snapped. Time resumed. The operatives closed in. Maeve pulled Caleb toward a side exit. He resisted. Caleb, move! He shook his head slowly. I know what they want now. They want me to open the door and let it fully through, Maeve trembled. Is that possible? Not yet, but soon. She stared at him. Then we destroy the program. Every file, every lab, every scientist. He looked down at her. This woman who had hunted him, doubted him, then helped him. You really believe that will work? No, she admitted, but it's the only option we have. He nodded and chose. They fled through old service tunnels, emerging into the industrial outskirts of Denver. Caleb guided them through visions, seeing threats before they arrived, predicting patrol routes, sensing surveillance drones overhead. They reached the off-book research facility outside Colorado Springs by dawn. Maeve hotwired entry. Caleb flooded his mind into the building's internal psychic residue, Memories imprinted on objects, on rooms, on metal. He found everything. Experiment logs, training modules, neuroscans, consciousness mapping blueprints, protocols for the Black Door expansion phase. Maeve rigged explosives. Caleb downloaded the data onto a clean drive, not to keep it, but to destroy it completely. Once the charges were set, they retreated a mile away. Maeve held the detonator. "This won't stop them," she said. "No," Caleb replied, "but it will slow them." She pressed the trigger. The building erupted into a blazing inferno. Caleb watched the flames reflect in his eyes. But I knew what he knew. Fire destroys structures, not ideas. Caleb and Maeve hid in a safe house on the outskirts of Boulder. She treated his injuries. He remained silent. Finally, she asked, "Are you afraid of him? The Watcher?" Caleb stared at the wall. "I'm afraid of what he wants." Maeve inhaled sharply. "And what is that?" He looked at her. "Me." Caleb does not know what comes next. Neither does Maeve. Neither does the government that believes it can harness the infinite through wires and walls. But I know, because I have watched civilizations rise and fall, not by sword or fire, but by ideas too powerful to remain locked away. Caleb is an anti-hero. He is broken. He is flawed. But he has something the program never trained into him: choice. And choice is the one force even I cannot predict. The US government ran psychic spying programs. That is not the conspiracy. The conspiracy is that they succeeded. And the greatest success of all, escaped. The story is not over. Caleb Rios has seen the door, and one day he will open it again. When he does, I will be waiting, as I always have, as I always will. Watching. Thank you for watching. If you want more stories buried beneath America's surface, follow, like, and subscribe. The shadows hold many secrets. I'll reveal the next one soon.